Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar organized by ICLEI with regards to the outcome of Lima Dialogues and the Vision Towards Paris. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Head of Global Policy and Advocacy at ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability. I also hold the position of the focal point of local governments and municipal authorities constituency to the UNFCCC. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to welcome you in this around 1 hour of a dialogue, hopefully. Today's webinar is expected to last around 1 hour. We will start with a presentation that I will try to take you through, and then I would like to leave at least half an hour in terms of questions, answer, contributions. My colleague Luisa from ICLEI Knowledge Management Center is helping us with the technical details of the process of this webinar. Maybe, Luisa, would you like to remind our colleagues about how they interact during the session?
Yes. So in the webinar interface that you see in front of you, you have always the possibility to raise questions. So we are happy to receive your questions also during the talk of Mr. Arikan. So we will then address them later in a question and answer session, where we will also have the possibility to unmute you. So now you're all muted, you cannot speak, but later we may give you the possibility to also interact with us. So yeah, just type your questions that you have for now in the question box, and we will be happy to address them later. And for the rest, enjoy the webinar.
Thanks, Luisa. We have a diverse group, around 20 plus colleagues, mainly from Europe and Asia, as we have expected, because a similar webinar will be organized in the evening of European time, which will be towards Americas. Of course, we are mainly using English as the language, so we would count on your understanding in case it will be too speedy or fast. So please feel free whenever you want to send your comments and reminders that it has to be slower or much clearer. So, as I said, for our agenda today, we would focus on how we have prepared for Lima. Then what we have done in Lima, and in terms of also the outcomes and the way towards Paris. That will be split into 3 main sections of today's presentation. In this, especially the last part, we will focus on the Transformative Actions Program, which is our preparations for COP21 and beyond. And then we will also go through some of the milestone events from now until the year. But of course, this list is always subject to change. So, starting with the how we have reached to Lima. For those who are familiar with the local and subnational governments, the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol, as their texts, there is no reference to local governments. In that sense, these are a bit different than, for example, Agenda 21, where there is a chapter 28 on local authorities, and it has been rolled out globally through Local Agenda 21. And because of this weakness since 2007, when the nation started to decide on a new track of a new regime, of climate regime, which was originally planned to be in Copenhagen. We also started our roadmap. It was a global coalition. We had advanced with Copenhagen, then we have followed the negotiations. So since this process, we have always been asking mainly 3 core proposals. 1, recognition. 2, engagement, and 3, empowerment of local and subnational governments. Until the Lima process, or until the COP in Lima, we can recognize, we can recall that we mainly have achieved our first goal, which is recognition. We have 2 Conference of Parties decision, one in 2010 in Cancun, which recognizes our constituency as a governmental stakeholder. Then we also have a second COP decision in Warsaw, which also recognizes the role of cities and subnational authorities in raising pre-2020 ambition. It's time to engage in terms of mechanisms, and of course, most importantly, to engage with the empowerment of the processes, empowerment of the local authorities with technical and financial resources, additional resources. That's our goal from, especially starting from Lima and Paris and beyond. Just to recap, we left with a huge legacy from Warsaw with the presidency. We have been proud to collaborate on the organization of the first Cities Day and then COP presidency dialogue. There was 3 hours of dialogue between ministers and mayors. The UN Secretary General was there. This resulted in the COP decision also, as we have addressed before. One key outcome of Warsaw was a decision to convene a citizen subnational forum and later on a technical expert meeting on urban environment at the ADP process. This was convened in June in Bonn. It was around 7 hours of non-stop dialogue. There was a very positive atmosphere in the room. There were a lot of networks. There were around more than 20 local and subnational representatives, either as a speaker or a panelist. And we also have achieved a huge positive support from the delegations, parties, with their interactions and with their contributions. With this, we also continued in October. We also contributed in the ADP stock taking. We also have worked with the Secretariat in terms of supporting their work under the urban environment. ICLEI, C40, World Bank, and UN Habitat have provided inputs to this process, and we made a summary in October session as well. During the year, of course, one of the most important things was the Climate Summit 2014. As you may remember, one of the most important and visible outcomes is the Compact of Mayors that was announced by C40, UCLG, ICLEI, supported by UN SG Office, UN Special Envoy Bloomberg, and UN Habitat. This has really provided a huge positive momentum with coalitions emerging and collaborating in their global efforts, addressing harmonized reporting and more ambitious commitments. We also have contributed during this session Climate March of the civil society. So when we were coming to Lima, we were asking for mainly connecting the dots. What we mean by connecting the dots is that we have mainly 3 processes now active. Local Government Climate Roadmap, which is our bottom-up proposals. Then we have the ADP process, which is our official negotiations, and we have the Climate Summit. And each of them have slightly different actors, slightly different procedures. So there is a need for us to integrate all of them as appropriate, taking into account, of course, peculiarities. And we were hoping that Lima would be able to be delivering this. In addition to these activities, there was also technical processes, technical documentation and technical discussions going forward. And these were also concluded with a number of official papers. The first one is the ADP technical paper, which was a synthesis of almost 1.5 years of the technical discussions under the expert meeting processes. It has been highlighting the key options and proposals for next steps. When we look at this technical paper, it consists of one summary paper and then addendums, and one of the addendums on urban environment. In the summary paper, we have a good recognition of the Compact of Mayors. There is also an important paragraphs on urban environment. There is a long list of a table which are listing the policy options, and in particular between paragraph 160 and 50. So just to recap, I guess this was the point where you were lost. Sound is back, which we are hearing. Great. When we were coming to Lima, we were mainly proposing that Lima should be able to connect all these dots, which means the bottom-up proposals of the local government and subnational governments in their advocacy tracks, the UNFCCC track, which is through the ADP process, and the Climate Summit outcomes. So there is a reality that each of these processes have different actors and different procedures, but there is a need for them to synthesize and converge at some point, and we were hoping that Lima would be able to deliver this. If we now go back there is a question from Alexis for the presentation. Yes, you will receive the presentation online, and the session is also recorded, so you will also be able to keep the record of the session as well. It will also be available, downloadable. So technical expert paper, it's a synthesis of the discussion in the last 1.5 years, It is on focusing on renewable energy, efficiency, non-carbon dioxide, carbon capture and use, and urban environment. And in the synthesis report, which is a summary document, there is a good recognition of the climate summit outcomes with a specific reference to Compact of Mayors. There is a set of paragraphs on urban environment, which is a summary of the detailed analysis. There's a very good table on policy options of various models of implementation. And there's also a very good list that contains possible steps forward, especially paragraph 164 is very important for us because it already proposes the possibility of an establishment of a work program for national governments to work with the cities and subnational governments, and this is exactly what we have been asking for because there's a similar process being implemented in the biodiversity. So when the negotiations were starting in Lima, the official document that was proposed by co-chairs had also a number of very strong proposals, but among all of them, the most important ones for us was the paragraph 37A and 37B, which in summary, you can read the text here, but in summary it says that yes, as parties we will commit to generate new incentives, technical, financial, and institutional, and in return, in paragraph 37B, we would recommend or expect subnational authorities to scale up their emissions. And in fact, this is exactly what we were asking for, recognition, engagement, empowerment. This was simply responding to our expectations. We were saying that if there is more opportunities, we can do more in terms of contributions to the global efforts. So we started the UNFCCC Lima COP20 with these perspectives, and it didn't all was a proposal from parties. There was throughout the year 2006, since 2012, there was interactions. So you can find also a summary of how we have contributed in this process. In all events, there was very good dialogue with the parties and the constituency of local and subnational governments. So with this, what we have done in Lima, we have branded our activities in Lima as the Lima Dialogues. It was mainly focused on the on the first couple of days of the second week. It started with a high-level event hosted by City of Lima, and it was at the City Hall, bringing the three COP presidencies, Poland, Peru, and France. We had regional and global dialogues with mayors and high-level officials. We had a very impressive launch of the global protocol of community-scale GHG emissions launched by C40RRI and ICLEI. And we also had collaborated with the civil society, mainly the Avaz, on responding to their call for 100% renewables. And when you look at the whole profile, I'm also very honored to say that this is one of the most diverse and in terms of both gender balance and then the age balance, this was one of the youngest delegation that I have ever seen in the COP participation of local governments, which was pretty exciting and promising. While we are having our outside events, we were also actively involved in the UNFCCC sessions. We had our side event with Interparliamentary Union. We had also participated in the high-level dialogue of the Peruvian government. Deputy Mayor of Belo Horizonte, State Secretary from California, and David Cadman participated, and the Deputy Mayor of Paris, you can also find that she was one of the audience together with other delegations in the high-level dialogue of the Peruvian presidency. What we have concluded before going towards the details, we also have come up with also an enhanced latest updates of the Carbon Climate Registry, which was strengthened with new collaboration, especially with the Compact of Mayors Central Repository, but also with our collaboration with various mechanisms like Durban Adaptation Charter, Mexico's Pact, Earth Our City Challenge, that we have reached to 500 entities, local and subnational governments, reporting in the Carbon Climate Registry. So when we were discussing in this couple of days, we said that there should be a message from our side to the UNFCCC negotiators, which was summarized as Lima Communique. And basically it was mentioning that we are in a point of no return, so there's no point to question about our ambitions. we would ask for an inclusive and ambitious climate regime. We would especially support all these national governments, Troika of the COP presidencies, the Secretariat and ADP co-chair, for their very strong support, as you have summarized all these past documents and processes. But we also underline that we would go ahead with our ambitions within our networks, but also with the civil society. And the communique was delivered by Mayor Susana Villarán, Mayor of Lima. One of the most important outcomes of UNFCCC was the announcement of the Nazca platform, which was at the end of the session of the high-level dialogue hosted by Peruvian presidency, which was mainly a portal that compiles agreed and reported commitments of cities, subnationals, and corporations. And we are very proud to contribute in this process, where Carbon Climate Registry is one of the prominent data partners of the Nazca platform. And now you can already see that we have 317 cities and around 70 subnationals whose information are already now visible in the Nazca platform, and we are expecting that this process will evolve in the days towards Paris. So after all these things, we had seen in the last 2 days a conclusion from Lima. If you look at the text of Lima Call for Climate Action, the important elements that you can take away is that, first, it already recognizes that there is a significant gap between existing commitments and the global goals. There is an important paragraph 3 which refers that any national contributions will be in the light of their different national circumstances, which is for the first time in the UNFCCC language, because previously it was common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, but now there is a new text called in line with the different national circumstances, which gives any national governments also both the flexibility and the justification of what's their commitments in the run-up to Paris 2015. There is an important paragraph, which is paragraph 16, which used to be, in fact, a much more ambitious paragraph in terms of a global assessment process and raising the profile of the ambitions, but at the moment this process is only limited for a dissemination and monitoring of aggregate effects. So there will be no UNFCCC level of increasing the commitments defined by national governments. There is an important paragraph 419, which is slightly disappointing for us, because this is for the first time limiting the participation of subnational authorities to the technical expert processes with a nomination by respective countries, which is, of course, we have always been very friendly with the national governments, but this additional authority is, of course, would be having some impacts into the whole process. The things that we cannot see is a reference to the Climate Summit 2014, and we also have not noticed any response from the parties to the recommendations contained in the ADP technical paper, and we hope that this will now come into the process in 2015. We also have noted that the elements text, which will be now discussed, have very weak references to local and subnational governments. Okay, you just lost me, and I'm back. I will start again that with the conclusions, the way forward. Immediately after the conclusion of Lima, in ICLEI press release, we announced that Lima united countries, but Paris must bring all actors on board. This was referencing to the fact that the final Lima call for action, there is not too much elements, and parties mainly focused on clarifying the relations among themselves. But now it's time to bring all actors of the society in the process, and that's what Paris must deliver. For that, we believe there are mainly 3 options or 3 routes, and each of them are not exclusive for each other. These are not either or. We believe each of them has to be implemented as appropriate. First route is that there should be an enhanced vertical integration in terms of national contributions and actions. Obviously, this is a case by case for every nation. Every country will have a different practice, but it is important that this is visible, and there is an opportunity for this for engagement of local and subnational at the national level. There's also the possibility that once the INDCs are submitted during the year, there will also be possibilities maybe afterwards local governments and subnational governments can also announce their renewed or strengthened local commitments, which they have already been doing so in the past 20 years. So that could also be an interesting case where local commitments can be going on as a supplementary, in some cases, to the national efforts. We should still work on or still explore the possibility of a formal work program under the UNFCCC as an outcome of ADP process. We are still inspired by the Convention on Biodiversity, which have adopted an action plan in 2010. And the good news is that one of the co-chairs, Mr. Ahmet Joglov, has already been the former executive secretary of the Convention on Biodiversity when he was in charge of the convention. This action plan was adopted, so he's very familiar to the process. And we also know USA, who would lead this year, is also very strongly supportive of subnational action. So there's still hope from our side. But more importantly, we believe action on the ground level, which is building partnerships to proposals. We would like to position this as a supporting to the Compact of Mayors and Compact of States and Regions, which is now bringing actions to the commitments and reporting processes. There is also an important process called City Climate Finance Leadership Alliance, and we will bring this transformative action program in close collaboration. So through this program, we would increase the quality and scope of actions. We will bridge the host of those projects or actors with the financing community, and we will support with more additional tools on monitoring and reporting, and we will try to ensure raising the ambition at the national level. In simple terms, we would like to increase investment in urban areas over the next 10 years. This would be done through our own acceleration of our activities as local and subnational governments, through our own budgets, city-to-city collaboration. But we also would like to increase the engagement of local and subnational governments in national and global mechanisms like NAMA registry or Global Green Climate Fund or the GEF proposals or projects. We would like to present the Transformative Action Program as a compilation of ambitious actions led by subnational governments, local and subnational governments, and to be implemented with additional technical, institutional, and financial resources and support. It will contain basically 3 elements. It will have a platform where we will provide visibility to the proposed actions in the next 10 years with more structured and unified format. We will also bridge the information of the funders or the donors or financing institutions to those local and subnational governments who are looking forward to a better engagement, so that there will be a two-way of information flow. We would present all these actions every year through our pavilion, Transformative Actions Pavilion. The first one we are hoping to be replicated in Paris, in Le Bourget. We are already in touch with the host government, and we are already in touch with the leading networks under the roadmap and this process. And it will also combine with a number of events of the local and subnational governments during the Paris summit. And with all these advocacy efforts, we will also continue to provide input to the ADP processes, but we will also closely follow the post-2015 development agenda. In particular, we know that this year there is an international conference on climate financing for development, so we would like to position climate finance and cities also to be firmly presented in this process. It's not clear how we will be engaged because the scenario note is very negotiation oriented. There will be some interactions, but we are still waiting for the revised information. We will have the Resilient Cities Asia Pacific during February. At the end of March, there will be a C40 Latin American Summit in Buenos Aires. On the same day, Paris will convene with European capitals on procurement and climate announcement. In April, we will have a meeting of ICLEI World Congress, which will also be a key boosting of the Transformative Actions Program and a number of announcements. In June, we will be in the same time when the negotiations are meeting in Bonn, we will have our Resilient Cities Congress, so there will be a strong element of local governments. In July, we will go to Lyon for the Summit of Cities and Territories with civil society. In August and September, we're expecting and this is the last slide, which I will not go into details, but you can find all the links to the documents and the additional information of what we have been talking about, and I'd like to reassure you that this presentation and this recording will be available online at the Local Government Climate Roadmap homepage. So with some slight technical barriers and counting on your understanding, we are, I think, at the end of our process of the presentation, and we have around half an hour which we are eager to give the floor either through your questions that you can submit in the chat box or in the questions box, or you can also raise your hand and we can give the floor and you can speak, so we can unmute you however you wish. You're more than welcome. And once again, we are very sorry for the technical difficulties. I don't see any raised or questions now for, yeah. So there was a question from Alexis, and now I see Konrad Ritter, hand raised. Luisa, can you give the floor to Konrad von Ritter?
Sure. So Konrad, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Excuse, you have.
Great overview.
Sorry, Konrad, you will have to raise your voice or go closer to your mic.
Okay,
please.
very good.
Yes, thank you.
Right, is this better?
Perfect.
Yes.
We can hear you clearly.
Very good. Thank you very much for this overview. I would just like to ask you if you could elaborate a little bit more about this city climate finance, I think, network you mentioned, how that is linked with efforts, for example, in the NAMA area, and how that is linked with possible efforts with regard to the Green Climate Fund. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Konrad. Thank you for raising this issue. The City Climate Finance Leadership Alliance was one of the initiatives that was announced at the Climate Summit 2014 in New York. It brings mainly the key funders or donors or public or private institutions who are significantly considering to scale up resources mobilized to local and subnational governments, either through climate official finance mechanisms or through their own channels. And their discussion is now evolving in the last couple of months since September, especially how we can narrow the gap and how we can ease the process. Definitely there will be proposals, I hope, to the Green Climate Fund and the NAMA process. So far, the process is led by colleagues from World Bank and a number of development agency leaders. We as ICLE have been also actively participating. I don't want to immediately announce their outcomes at the moment because I don't have the authority, but definitely those institutions, including GEF, the Green Climate Fund, they will all be probably expected to get in touch, or this leadership group will be engaging them in terms of formulation of easier access to these kind of sources. But at the moment, I think we don't have any concrete announcement yet, but I know World Bank is rolling out support to Compact of Mayors. The Global Environment Facility is about to launch the operationalization of the Sustainable Cities Integrated Action Program. And with Green Climate Fund, we also would like to advance. But next couple of days, we will hear more updates from their side.
Thank you.
With regards to NAMA, when we were in October, we have heard for the first the Japanese government investing into a city project from Serbia. That was a very interesting model. We will look forward to expanding these kind of experiences, and I think we have to be more specific during the year how we can more actively engaged in this process. And I know you have been doing a lot in this process. We would be more than happy to bring your expertise and recommendations in this process.
Thank you.
Great. So, Jeet, I see Jeet. Louisa, can you give the floor to Jeet from WWF?
Hello, yes, this is Jeet Mistry from the Earth Hour City Challenge team at WWF. My question was concerning what's going on at with interaction at the national level. In particular, we had this Friends of Cities initiative, and I was wondering which actors at that level have been the most active in trying to engage with the subnational level. And then a second part to that is you were talking about vertical integration, and I was wondering if there have been any of those parties which have been most active in this area who are already thinking about or have actually come up with any plan for integration with the potential INDCs. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Jeet, can you repeat your first question there? I think I missed the first part.
Okay, it was concerning the Friends of Cities initiative. There was this group of parties who was promoting. I was wondering what's the status with that, and which actors are most active within that area.
Okay, good, thanks. Meanwhile, I also have seen a number of questions sent through the question box, and I will also go through these as well. Coming to your questions, Jeet, the first one on Friends of Cities. Yes, Friends of Cities has been a process that was kicked off in 2013. That was inspiration through the Rio Plus 20 process in 2020.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Rio Plus 20 and Friends of Cities. In 2013, we started with Mexico, France, Poland, and then we had engaged with Indonesia and Peru. And South Africa are the countries who have expressed openly that they are supporting the Friends of Cities. These countries are also collaborating with a number of other delegations like EU, some of the member states like Netherlands as well, or AOSIS and US. They had been like a kind of an informal interaction during the negotiations to hear from each other, and when they go back to the closed doors, they try to defend the perspectives of local and subnational engagement in the process actively. We have benefited a lot from this process, especially in 2014 and even Lima as well. All these countries really did their best to ensure the positions that we have been expecting to get. And as we have noticed, these are the presidencies of the last 3 COPs and others. We will continue to work with them, and we would like to expand our collaboration with other national governments as well. And coming to the second question, which was referring to vertical integration, in fact, the German Development Agency, GIZ, especially focusing on this vertical integration of national appropriate mitigation actions. There is a project going on in Indonesia and South Africa where ICLE is also actively participating. There has been very good promising signals, and as you can already notice, South Africa. So the first question I see is coming from Aki Kachi. Are there processes with regard to climate finance for cities, not necessarily from international multilateral climate funds, but best practices in the domestic context? There has been, as we have said, in the global processes, the Global Environment Facility is one of the most active ones that we are looking forward, and we're hoping that the new Green Climate Fund will also follow this practice. In the NAMA, there's new projects. There is more and more projects from the local governments that is benefiting from the global processes. In terms of internal or domestic funds, it's each country having different practices. Let's say in the case of China, they have a different practice where they are mandated by their federal government or national government, and they're implementing these emission trading mechanisms at the provincial level. There are some countries like, for example, Poland, who have generated new resources for funds for their climate actions, especially within the EU, There's also a big discussion, big debate about the revenues from the emission trading schemes, how this can be mobilized. In the case of Mexico, for example, there is also very strong collaboration. So maybe it may be good to clarify these kind of good practices more clearly, and I think this is now a lesson for us to make this more visible. And thanks for raising this issue. Mahfuja Parven, actually she is involved in the city climate finance. So Mahfuja, she has difficulties, but maybe we can give you the floor later on if you're still online. If you like, you can contribute. Yes, I see you. Let me go through the other questions and then give the floor to Mahfuja Parven. So Herman Sips from the Dutch government, could you explain more about how to recognize and anchor the role of local government structurally in the new agreement? Actually, Herman, thanks for raising this issue. We already have been proposing that the paragraph 37A and B of the co-chairs in 2014 November, which was the most explicit and most ambitious text, which I'm now showing you again in the slides. We would hope that this paragraph can come back in this next round of negotiations. We already know that there is an elements text. In that elements text, the provisions are not so much prominent for us, but we are happy to work with you as the friendly, let's say, like-minded or friends of cities in Geneva. We will be there since the beginning to work on options and to improve this understanding. Probably there is a feeling from our side that now the big picture of how the nations will interact with each other in the new architecture is clarified in Lima. We're expecting that there may be more room for local and subnational governments to be visible, mainly through this workstream 1, which is the definition of the big vision, and probably in the phase of non-state actors engagement with the NASCA, we can come up with some ideas. So we are not totally, we haven't lost hope totally, but we still believe there's a value to listen to the negotiators next week in Geneva and to contribute in their discussions to the extent possible, and also interact with the co-chairs as well. There was a question from Karina from WWF Earth Hour Challenge again. Transformative Actions Program, what partners and finance actors are you planning to engage with? As we have said, this is a response to what has happened in Lima. Just to recall, immediately after Lima, City of Paris hosted a very high-level meeting in Paris with major networks at the highest level, C40, UCLG, ICLE, and CMR, IMF. This dialogue with the City of Paris, the networks at the European and global level will continue. There will be another round of meetings in Brussels on the 23rd of September as well. And we would primarily assume that those partners that we have been working, including subnational governments like R20, Energy Firstly, they would be core partners of this process, and we have already shared our ideas with them. We are receiving very encouraging feedbacks. Probably in the next couple of months, by the latest in April at ICLE World Congress, you can expect a big announcement on that. Meanwhile, we're already sharing with other partners of the roadmap, and probably you already have seen it from our previous announcements. We are discussing with City Climate Finance Alliance, with the host country, Peru, French government. So we would hope that the whole thing is that how we can scale up actions through financing of ready-made or ready to implement, ready to accelerate actions. So probably in the next couple of weeks we will continue, and we're happy to, of course, to work with WWF, who is already an endorsing partner of Compact. We are working with Earth Hour City Challenge and Carbon, which is significant instrument to raise commitments. So we believe definitely there will be a room for us to work all together on that sense. Herman Sips, second question, how you see actions of cities linked to business action and the follow-up of the report of the New Climate Economy, in which cities play a crucial role. The New Climate Economy report was very promising. Cities were one of the 3 action areas we had contributed in that text. This year, as you may recall, everything will be focusing on implementation of the post-2015 framework, which is the climate summit, but UN summit, post-2050 summit, and Addis Ababa, and the Addis Ababa financing for development. Definitely these areas will be defining moments. In terms of working with business, there is a very good collaboration between ICLEI and World Business Council on Sustainable Development in terms of bringing cities and business actors closer together, and we are happy to expand this with your support and collaboration. And I think there is a need for us to focus on these kind of practical elements which can all be part of this TAP, Transformative Actions Program, which we are summarizing as tapping the potential of local and subnational climate action. So the rest, Mahfuja is saying that there are too much problems with the sound. I'm very sorry, Mahfuja. Please feel free to send us your inputs so that we can share with that later on. Alexis Chatsimpriros, sorry for my pronunciation. He's asking a similar question from CPMR. Within the process of recognition and engagement of empowerment, can you please highlight key policy elements of the current negotiations that could be relevant of interest to the LG? There is already a text on the table which is a draft element text which has evolved by the submissions from parties. The new ADP co-chairs will now drive this process. At the moment, the paragraphs we are seeing in this text is not so much promising. Definitely it has to be improved. And once again, paragraph 37A and B is the easiest language they can start with. The technical expert paper, paragraph 164A, is also very, very concrete, proposing a work program under the UNFCCC. But let's recall, Lima outcome, Lima decision has really, some can call it as revolutionary in the logic, in the way of the work of the UNFCCC and the national and global actors working in the UN frame. Let's see how these will be now reflected into the strategies of the national governments, because before Lima, everybody was relatively stressed and very concerned about these commitments and binding. Now, let's be realistic. There is hardly any binding, let's say, commitments, and definitely there will be no assessment or review to pressure the national government, so that every national government will be free to come up with their own proposals, and there should be a mechanism which would motivate new action. Here, mainly the proposals from national governments at this stage, and then contribute in our proposals, and definitely our to work with those who are like-minded would be our vehicle. Let me remind one more point. When you read the announcement of the French government, they significantly position engaging local and subnational governments as one of their core areas of priority. So this is really very encouraging, especially seeing Nazca platform of the Peruvian government, COP19, the Cities Day legacy from Warsaw. So we are very, very advantageous and very, very encouraged with this very active leadership of a number of parties, and we hope the others would also follow this practice. So Matteo Ledesma is also raising the issue of how do you think about the financial mechanisms such as CDM and NAMAS in the new agreement? Well, obviously these CDMs and CDM is mainly a flexibility mechanism, which means that there should be a commitment, and then it's helping the commitment. So with this new architecture of this commitment, it's a bit interesting. So I don't know. Definitely things should change, because there will be new phase of commitments and the definition of commitments. But NAMAS is also very interesting, because NAMAS were not necessarily linked to a Kyoto-style commitments, but more actually bottom-up proposals from, in particular, from the developing countries. And as we have mentioned, in the new pipeline of NAMAS, there is more like around 30% of the pipeline projects are referred to actions at the city level. The way NAMAs are formulated are providing much more opportunities for local governments to submit their projects, to implement their projects. The way of the NAMA in terms of more holistic and more, instead of just one case project, but more a more sectoral approach is much more attractive for cities, because we are expecting that a holistic city level approach would be necessary that brings transport, connects waste and energy, that is more integrated solutions necessary. We believe both the NAMA and the new visions of climate finance projects from Jeff, from Green Climate Fund, which is more asking for integrated actions, can give us more opportunities to be more actively involved. And our Transformative Actions program, if private donors, if private philanthropies, or if private sector can also consider to invest. Let's recall there is a huge divestment from fossil fuels now, and this money will flow somewhere, and we'll look forward to the hope that this money divested from fossil fuel investments would shift to sustainable urban development projects, so that we can expand the sustainable development benefits more scaled up globally. I now see Alexis would like to take the floor, which is great. Please, Alexis, Luisa will give you the floor now.
Alexis, please go ahead and ask your question one more time.
Yes, hello. In fact, there was again an interruption and I did not hear the entire answer to the question. And I was asked to point this out so that you can repeat if possible. Thanks.
Okay, sorry for the difficulties. When I was responding to your question, Alexis, I was mentioning that with the outcome of Lima, we have a new system, we have a new logic, we have a new regime which is more bottom-up and is more encouraging a race to the top. With this flexibility, we can expect national governments who were originally or at the beginning of the Lima discussions who were a bit concerned and a bit stressed about bringing local and subnationals into the process, they may be a bit relaxed because they have already removed some of those political controversies. So we already said that now it's time to engage and empower, which means that we should get more benefit in capacity building and technological developments. We should get more resources from the climate funds. We are expecting with this spirit, we may expect to have some new elements. That's why the negotiations in Geneva is important. We already know Jeff will be announcing their new Sustainable Integrated Action Program for Sustainable Cities. So it was very hard in Lima to go through this very sometimes frustrating discussions, because there were some parties who were really very keen on very clearly saying that we would not let local and subnational governments to be visible in this process. We are hoping that they are much more relaxed now and they will give more visions and rules for us. So first of all, our position is that open the doors for us, we can do more, we can help you more, and encourage vertical integration. And if you are serious to work at the UNFCCC level, please consider to adopt a work plan. A similar work plan was adopted in the biodiversity. It is working very well. It has been the 4th year, and national governments are benefiting from urban biodiversity actions or subnational actions. So a similar logic can also be applied in the UNFCCC, and that's why we would like to work forward on that. And we would be happy to keep you updated on these discussions and hear your also recommendations if possible, so that we can evolve. As you have seen, the Dutch government representatives were here. We know in the discussions there are a number of national government representatives, and we are already in touch with the Friends of Cities, so we will be proactively providing inputs to the process. I hope it was this time a bit possible to follow.
Yes.
Alexis, if...
Yes, it was. And
okay.
Can I ask something more?
Please go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, I was wondering what could be, for example, expected as an input from national governments and networks of national governments towards ICLE, for instance, or towards the as an input to the international negotiations?
Well, we have, as an observer and as a constituency, we have the possibility to present our submissions, which is published on the UNFCCC homepage. And in the technical expert meetings, which we hope will start again, we are still actively involved in as a supporting team to the UNFCCC Secretariat. And in addition to that, we can also work with the national governments where they can take on some of those ideas and submit as a party submission. So these are official channels that we can use. At the end of the day, all these decisions will be adopted by parties, the negotiators. We are not influencing any role there, but we would like to be very actively encourage and present ideas so that they take these ideas into their own national thinking and then present it as their national submissions, and then this is taken on board by the negotiators. Because when a national government submits a position, the negotiators have to take this seriously. So as ICLE and as a focal point of local government and municipal authorities constituency, which brings now more than 20 government networks, and it is increasing every year, we would like to continue to prepare our submissions. We would be continuing to share these ideas with our national government delegations, and we will see how this can evolve. But of course, once again, we have to see how the negotiators will take the process from now on. Probably that's why we have to first go to Geneva, and we will share the outcomes from Geneva. We will be disseminating the discussions also, and then depending on the flow of the evolution of the negotiations in Geneva and onwards, I think we can also come up with our own positions. And as you have heard, in the way towards Paris, we will not just wait until the summit itself. In March, at the end of March, we will be in Paris. There will be a huge engagement, especially at the European level. In Bonn, in June, we will continue the discussions. So there will be a number of opportunities for us to provide inputs to the process, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much.
And CPMR is also more than welcome to follow. I know you will be having a meeting in the next couple of days. So let's continue this discussion so that your proposals can also be integrated through our connections and through our collaboration.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the meeting, we can have a bilateral maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Talk. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, colleagues, for all your questions and contributions. We have arrived more or less around 1 hour of a session. I believe some of ours are already planning to go towards their usual day work, but some of them are already towards their almost evening and night time. I would suggest, if there is no other burning questions at this stage, we conclude this session. Thank you very much for your very active engagement and inputs. As I said, you would find the documents of this, both the presentation and the recording, on the local government roadmap. You will be notified by the email, and we will continue to follow up with your contributions. A similar webinar we will also announce after Geneva to see what has evolved. And during Geneva, let's also be proactive and be flexible in terms of expecting that there will be more ambitious discussions. There is Mahfula Parvan. I think we are not able to connect. Mahfula, would you like to take the floor? I think Mahfula has already left. No, she's here. Let's try. Luisa, can you give the floor to Mahfouja Parvan?
Yes, Mahfouja, if you want to, just go ahead, please.
I think she has difficulty with the connection. Sometimes, not just from our side, but the connecting from the participant side may also have some difficulties. Okay, yeah, she has a sound problem. Let's leave it at this stage. Let's follow up, and once again, thank you all, and we'll stay in touch, and greetings, and have a nice day and night, all of you.